Hello, it's Tuppence and I'm back with another Froggy Friday. This week I want to put some flowers in my frog. This is a Hydrangea Bloom which I dried with silica sand, and it will fit perfectly in the body of my frog. So I'm going to just pop this off to the side gently so I don't break it. Before I go ahead and put that in there, I want to make some eyes. So I've got my cabochon mould and I think this is the size that will fit. This is an alcohol ink pen in violet, which matches that colour of the hydrangea, so I'm going to try and use that. Okay, I've put some marks on my mould so that I know which ones to use, and I think it's these small ones. So I'm just going to use some Resin UV resin and top up the mould, try and get it level with the surface. And maybe I need a little bit more in there. Okay, so I've definitely got a bubble in there. Let me get that out. Try and move it to the side. And just check that there aren't any in that one either. I will be back once that's been cured for 2 minutes. That's cured now and I'm drawing the pupil. I'm using a slightly chunky Sharpie pen, so I'm trying to make the line as thin as possible by just doing a series of dots along the line and trying to make them the same size. I think they are both the same length roughly, and they're not too bad. I'm just going to let that dry for a second, but obviously that is an alcohol pen and the colour that I'm going to be putting in is also going to be an alcohol pen, and that means that they're going to react with each other if I touch the black, and I'll end up with a muddy mess in the middle. So I'm going to try and make a series of dots around that pupil and not touch it. And the idea for making the dots also is that I'm going to be putting some opalescent chunky glitter behind that, and I'd really like that to shine through any of the spaces that haven't been filled in with the colour. Try and zoom in and then tilt my pen, and there you can see I'm just putting dots, stippling it's called, and I'm trying not to touch that alcohol ink in the middle, otherwise I will end up smudging it. So I'm hoping this colour, it looks like it matches pretty well with the colour that is in the hydrangea, but I don't know how that's going to react once I put that in the resin. It may go darker, it probably will go a little bit darker. And also I don't know what this is going to look like once I've put the glitter behind this. So it's going to be a surprise. Alright, I'm just going to leave that for a second and then I'm going to top that with some more UV resin. I've just got enough space to put a little bit of UV resin on there, and then I can drop my glitter pieces into that. So this is a chunky opalescent glitter. I'm going to grab some with my tweezers and then I can drop that on top of the resin, and it should sink enough to seal that in place. I can brush off any excess. Just put a decent amount on the back, and then hopefully this will add a little something to the front. It should make them shiny and iridescent on the front. Well, that's my plan anyway. Okay, I'm just going to round that up and try and move as much of the glitter into the resin as possible. Anything that is overhanging once I've cured this, I'll just cut that off with a pair of scissors. Just help them to sink underneath that resin. And then once I've done this, I'm going to pop this underneath my lamp and cure it again for another 2 minutes. I'm using the double-sided lamp, so it will cure from top and bottom. Alright, now I can get them out of the mould and see what they look like. You're not going to see it very well on my glove. Let me just pop it on the mould. That's not too bad. It is slightly more see-through than I would like. You can see the dots a little bit more than I like, and perhaps not the glitter, but they do look quite pretty. We'll see how they look in the frog. So I'm just going to snip off the glitter that's overhanging the edges, and then I'll put them in my frog. I've tested them and they do fit, so that's great, and I'm just going to put a blob of the UV resin in there, put them in place and then cure that to hold them. I can see through the back because it is quite see-through. I can see where the line is, so I know that I'm going to have them in the right orientation. At least I hope I will, otherwise she's going to be a boss-eyed frog. So I'll just try and use my tweezers to get that in place and make sure that the line is in the position that I want. You just check and push that in place with my finger. Make sure it turns around a little bit. I can just about see where the line is. So I'm going to use my UV torch and then I will cure that in place. I fixed the other one in place in exactly the same way, checking to make sure that I had the line in the right direction. And you can see they're both fixed now, so I'm ready to add the hydrangea. I've decided to use some deep pour resin as I think this is going to give me the best chance of having no bubbles or minimal bubbles, because I expect I'm going to have some. So it's a 2-to-1, so I've mixed up 2 ounces of part A and 1 of part B, and that will give me 3 ounces, which I hope is going to be enough to at least cover most of the flower. I'm going to make sure that this is all coated because the hydrangea petals are like cups, so they are going to trap bubbles, especially as I've got to lay it face down. Just about get it into the bottom of the cup and get it all covered. Right, let me hook that out and pop it into the frog. Oops, let's try that again. Try not to get drips everywhere. I just want to turn it round because it is slightly more narrow at the top. It's almost as if this bloom was made for this frog. It fits perfectly. And now I can pour that on top. There's something in there, so I'm just going to get that out. A little bit of twig or leaf or something. Just try and drag it to the side and then take it out of the resin. I want this to try and be as clear as I possibly can. Okay, that looks good. So now I can add the rest of the resin. Try and pour it gently because I don't want to add any more bubbles, and I need to be a little bit careful of the flowers. It was pretty crispy until I dunked it in the resin. I'm going to pour a little bit into the legs as well, but only in the bottom part of the arms and the legs. I am going to be putting some chrome powders on the hands and the feet, so I don't want to cover that with any resin as of yet. Okay, almost done. And it looks like I've got just enough to cover this, so it may be floating a little bit, which is perfect, but I don't want it to float too far away from the back. Okay, last little drop, and that will give me plenty of room in the back to add another layer. Now I can use my stick to make sure that this is in position. I will keep coming back regularly in the next couple of hours, checking to make sure that it hasn't moved around and that there aren't any major issues with it. But this is going to take some time to set, so I will be back when I am ready to add the chrome powders. Okay, this is ready now and it's smooth to the touch and not sticky, so I'm going to use the purple chrome powder from Let's Resin. And again, I think this matches the colour really nicely. And I'm only going to put this into the hands and the feet. I'll speed this up because all I'm doing is burnishing it into the hands and the feet and taking it down to where the resin has already risen. I'm going to make sure that I get the colour all the way into the toes and cover the whole area. I'm not going to be using any pigment in my resin when I put that behind. I am going to add some glitter, but I mostly want that to be behind the flowers and under the body. The legs themselves is going to be clear resin, which I will use to top the rest of this up. And even though I'm not putting any colour behind this chrome powder, the pigments in them are so strong that it doesn't really make any difference. It looks really pretty and shows up so well. I highly recommend these. So I'm just going to carry on and fill all these in. Okay, almost done. Last toes. I'm graduating it down onto the surface of the resin that's already there. Then I can make sure that there is no loose powder left and mix up my resin. And this time I'm using craft resin. I'm going to put some into this little medicine cup, probably about 20-25 mils. I want to add my opalescent glitter to that. Okay, I think that's enough. So this is the glitter again, same one as I used on the back of the eyes. Make sure I get a good amount in there. And then I can gently use my stick to stir that in and make sure that all that glitter is covered in resin, trying not to add any more bubbles. Okay, that looks pretty good. Just clean off my stick before I put that down on my mat. Okay, I'm adding the glitter to the body. Make sure I cover up all the flowers first, and then I can make sure that it runs under the chin. So there is quite a steep angle where the previous resin layer is, so I'm going to want to make sure that I don't have any bubbles trapped under there. I'll scrape the rest of the glitter out of my pot. Get the last bits off my stick. Okay, and now I can spoon in the rest of the resin. I do want to make sure that this runs into the little toes. They're like beads, and that's a really good place for bubbles to get trapped, but I don't want to be poking the stick in there and removing any of that chrome powder. If I do, that's going to be really obvious from the front because there's going to be clear resin in here only. Because I've spooned this in, I can see that there aren't any bubbles, so I should be good, and I don't have to use the stick in there. And then I'm just going to use the rest of this to top this up and bring this level with the top of the mould, and I'll be back once I'm ready to demould. Okay, it is ready to demould now, and the back is looking very pretty, but what does the front look like? So I've just get this out of the mould, and that's a good sign. I don't have any bubbles under the chin. Oh, I like the colouring. Purple is not my favourite, but actually this colour matches really well. So yeah, that looks pretty good to me. Can't see anything too much. I can see a big old bubble there and a couple more. I guess that was to be expected, but that one is really pretty big. That's okay, I am going to put something on there. But all in all, yeah, I quite like it. So I will cover up those bubbles, but it looks really pretty. When you lay it down, the reflection in the nose looks like she's got a great big purple nose. But she's going to need a butterfly and a crown, I think. This bubble is huge, so I want to cover that up. And I've got this PET tape, and there's some butterflies on it, and I think that's the perfect size. So I'm going to cut out the butterfly, and I'm going to leave the backing on. It is a sticker, but I'm not going to use it as a sticker. I will cut round the acetate and just turn it into a die cut. Get rid of all the outside and just get rid of that plastic. And now I can fold this in half so it has a little bit more movement. I'll crease it with my fingers, and then that should sit and cover up that. Let's try that again. That should sit and cover up that bubble there. I'm going to attach it using some super glue, and I'm putting that onto the acetate that is on the back. And then I can press this onto the frog over that bubble and disguise it, hopefully. Just hold it in place for a couple of seconds Probably should have put gloves on, and then if I'm going to stick anything it would be the gloves. And I've also got a little gold crown, so I'm going to add that again using some super glue. Just run that around the edges. Pop that on her head. I've got some Let's Resin UV bonding resin, and I'm just going to put that around the middle using my stick, just where it joins the head. And that should be enough to strengthen it, and I'll cure it with the torch that came in the kit. And I think that's it for my Froggy Friday. If you want to know what Froggy Friday is, it's a weekly collaboration hosted by Lisa, Girl in the Garage, Karen, the Dragon's Cave, Loula, Nerd Goblin Art, Gert, Gert Creates, and Tim, Bass Resonator. Check the playlist down below and you will find a whole host of Froggy videos. I added another butterfly as a sticker this time, and that covered up a few more bubbles. But I'm really happy with it, and I love that I've preserved my hydrangeas from my garden. If you've loved this video, please give me a thumbs up, comment, share, subscribe if you haven't. You can click the QR code on the screen and come back and see what I'm going to make next time. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.